Hey, advisor family. Before we jump in, make sure that you subscribe and hit the like button so you never miss any conversations, move your mind and your life forward. I'm your host, Stacey Chillemi, and today we're going to go explore a question that sits in the very center of the human experience. What if the divine is bigger than any box we've built around it? Joining me today is Todd M. Jackson. He is a near-death experience researcher found on the Augmented Teachings podcast and radio. And he's the author of a brand new book, God, Religion, Moving from Faith to Knowing and Understanding. The book weaves into near-death experiences, research, soul journeys, insights, and everyday spiritual common sense into a 98-page guide for anyone who really wants to understand and learn and is ready to trade blind belief for wisdom. Today's Todd's mission is to spark a worldwide shift in consciousness, helping others remember that we're not here to fear the absent of God, but to partner with the ever-present one. So buckle up and keep your heart open, and let's dive into this right now. So Todd, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm very excited to learn about you. Tell
Thank you.
everybody a little about yourself and who you are.
Well, my name's Todd Jackson, and about 12 years ago, 2013 or so, I had an awakening, had a spiritual awakening, and I'm like, oh my gosh, God is real. God exists. I felt God enter me. I was able to see my guardian angels momentarily, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. So I better go become religious because God and religion are the same thing. And so I went and did that for a while, and I realized this wasn't working out. This is what they were saying and what they were doing were two different things. And I was like, and I cried out. I came home from church one day and I cried out to God. I said, God, I want to know how things work. I want to know the nuts and bolts of God's life and the afterlife. I don't want some obscure passage somewhere. I want the actual inner workings of how things work. And I
Yeah.
said, I was mad. I was so angry at that moment because I felt let down by the church. So 3 days later, I ran into a friend I hadn't seen in 20 years, and we were talking, and he goes, "Hey Todd, you should check out this NDE near death experience testimonial." And I'm like, "Okay." So I checked it out. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, there's the answers I was praying for, the answers I was looking for. Some of them were in this testimonial." So I started going more and more and more deeper diving into these testimonials. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, there's common themes here. These people don't know each other. They're from different countries. They're from different ethnicities. They're from different religions, different decades." And I'm like, but they're all saying the same thing, basically. And I'm like, okay, there's validity to this. As soon as I started researching, I knew I wanted to write a book, but there was too many holes. So I just kept going until all those holes were filled. And I had a good universal understanding of how things work. And that's when I wrote God is Greater Than Religion, a moving from faith into knowing and understanding. And I wrote it in a way to where people can absorb it easily. Like I said, it's under 100 pages, $10, but it's the chapters stand on their own. So when you look at it, it's basically all the things you want to know. There's no
Right.
testimonials actually in it. What it is, it's a compilation of the wisdom that I've learned from my research.
Yeah.
So literally, the first chapter is, does God exist? Chapter 2, what is the purpose of life? Chapter 3, how do we overcome judgment? And so on and so on.
What really inspired you to write this book? Like, what was your main inspiration to write a book filled with answers to, I know a lot of questions that people had because they came to you and they asked you about near-death experiences and they had similar situations. What was your main inspiration to go in this direction?
Love and compassion for humanity. And I'll tell you why. When I first started researching this, it was to answer my own questions. But then once I realized what is true on the other side of the veil, what we're held accountable to, I'm watching all these people and they're literally putting the proverbial fork into the outlet, into the electrical outlet, and they don't even realize it. They don't realize what you're saying and what you're doing has repercussions on the other side of the veil. And it's not going to be pleasant for those who have fear, judgment, and punishment as their mindset.
Hmm.
And I wrote this book to help them understand that You have to start doing things a little bit differently. And religion has nothing to do with it. God existed before the earth cooled, before religion existed, and God will exist after all religions are gone.
Right.
But how we treat each other is what is really required of us here. Because I'll get into chapter 2 right now. The two purposes of life. The first purpose is for our soul, and our soul is to work the puzzle of unconditional love, because God deserves the best version of our soul, not the worst. So we
Right.
keep coming back again and again and again until we achieve that level of enlightenment.
Hmm.
So if you want to go down the road of fear, judgment, punishment, you're actually lengthening your soul's journey and what it's supposed to be learning.
Right.
The second purpose of life is for our vessels, and our vessels are to create wonderful experiences. God is the creator, but God cannot experience. That is our job. Our job is to bring home experiences. These experiences we share with each other and have as our own to relive again and again and again. So if
Right.
you want to sit there and in the evening time and watch hate news, you can, but that's what you're bringing back home.
Right.
You're bringing home fear, judgment, punishment, self-righteousness. You're supposed to be bringing back wonderful experiences, because every life we have, every incarnation we have is our playbook. We can watch that movie again and again and again with all the emotion and all the sensory that we received while we lived that experience. We can replay that on the other side of the veil.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have 20 years of watching hate news. You want to create experiences that are worthy of yourself. You're shortchanging yourself, and you're shortchanging those around us, because we share. When you bring that back home, you have nothing to share with anybody.
Right. Oh, that's so true. Now, you argue that God is greater than religion. In one sentence, what's the biggest misunderstanding by two that God and religion create when where they're fused together?
Right. And I explained that in the book. I explained God is an ocean of benevolent energy that creates all things through vibration. So this has a vibration and this has a different vibration. That's why they have different properties.
Right.
Religion is an interpretation of a book. That's why
Mhm.
there's so many different religions based on one book, different interpretations. They take different pieces and make them more important than other pieces.
Yeah.
So when you get back home, it's not that convoluted. When you get back home, it's simple. It's love. Did you show love for humanity, and did you show love for a cross? And that's the real question. Did you show love to Jesus, who isn't here right now, when you could have shown love to your neighbor? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That's the action. You can't make Jesus a ham sandwich, but you can make your neighbor a ham sandwich and take it over to them and
Yeah.
have that positive experience to take back home and a soul development at the same time.
Right.
So that's one thing. It boils down to it's the golden rule. It's really the golden rule, and that is treat others the way you should be treated. And there's a reason for it. And the book explains why. The why behind it.
Right. Oh, it's so true. Now, practice and speak, and how does someone move forward from hoping something is true to experience it as the truth in daily life?
That really that comes with grace also, and that comes from Age of Soul. So a lot of people don't realize is that Age of Soul has a lot to do with it. We look at a crowd of people, and we're like, oh, those are all just human beings walking around. Yes, on the outside. On the inside, the souls are all different ages. So you have souls that have been here 2, 3 times. You have souls that have been here 20 times. You have souls that have been here 100 times. How
Yes.
that soul sees the world is determinant on how many times they've been here, because
Yeah.
they learn every time a soul is here, they learn more compassion, empathy, understanding, and
Hmm.
walk away from fear, judgment, and punishment.
Right.
So you'll have young souls they'll be very Old Testament. Then you have a little older souls that'll be more and more New Testament, more love and compassion. Then you have old souls who are like, you know what? I'm not going to worship. I'm going to walk the walk of love. I'm going to emulate rather than worship. And
Yeah.
that's where people start actually making faster progress with their soul development and actually start attaining their goals
Right.
spiritually. And when a person gets to that point, I would always say, imagine your body is a car, right? And you have a vessel and a soul, and they're competing to drive that vehicle.
Right.
You have the vessel in the driver's seat, but when the soul first gets here in its first incarnation, it cannot override the deficiencies of the vessel, the fear, judgment, punishment, ego, greed, all that stuff. So it's in the back seat. But after a while, the soul learns techniques and skills
Yes.
through hardships, through loving experiences, to take that wheel back. And that soul will learn how to override the fear of judgment and
Yeah.
actually steer that vehicle. And eventually, when a soul gets very, very old, that fear and judgment is in the trunk. You can't even hear it anymore, but it takes a long time. So when I look at younger souls, they're not bad souls. They just don't know any better. They don't know. They don't have the tools to override
Yeah.
using the Bible as a weapon, so to
Right.
speak.
Hmm.
They don't look for it to develop their own soul. They use it as a judgment tool to hurt others, and that's a
Right.
young soul mentality.
Now, which single near-death story was most powerfully illustrates what the soul continuously does beyond the single physical life?
Um, you know what? It's funny because the younger souls tend to be more judgmental, and those ones ask the most questions on the other side of the veil. I'm looking at the evangelicals, ask the most questions.
Hmm.
Because they have so much judgment that they've carried within them from their teachings and their understandings of what they've been led to believe.
Yeah.
So there was one lady, and she was headed to her past life review, which we can get into a little bit later. And she stopped her guardian angel, said, "Wait, wait, wait, stop!" And the angel stopped. She goes, and their first question was, "Why is my son gay?" Right? Because she was born that, she was taught that it was not right. And this answer is repeated in many different NDEs. The angel turned around and said, "Because your son was born a female 17 times in a row," and still identified, the soul still identified as a female. It was that simple. It wasn't rocket science. It was like, I read that one. I was like, oh my God, there's the answer right there. And then I turn around where I'm, drinking my coffee and researching. And I'm like, and there's people, that are anti-LGBTQ right behind me. I'm like, oh my God, if they even knew that this is just a normal soul process that we all go through. We
Yeah.
can't, we can't fully develop our souls as one gender.
Right. I agree with you. Now, you mentioned that spiritual common sense throughout the book. What
Yeah.
does it look like at 7 a.m. on a stressful Monday morning?
Right. It's the one I still deal with. Right.
Mhm.
So it's patience. And that for me, that stressful Monday morning, patience. We're putting fear ahead of where we're at. So we
Yeah.
have fear of the boss getting mad. We have fear of being late. We have fear of not being able to get that coffee in time to go do whatever we have to do. It's
Right.
always based in fear. If it wasn't
Mhm.
supposed to happen, it wasn't supposed to happen. There's always an outlet somewhere else. We want things to be this in a box. We want everything to be perfect. And when
Yeah.
it's not perfect, or the chances of it not being perfect, we have fear of that. And that's what causes that stress. When we
Yeah.
learn to breathe through it and realize it's going to be perfect for what it is. And that's all that has to happen. If I don't get that Starbucks, I don't get that Starbucks. But if we look at what we do have instead of what we don't have, then things start to change. And that's where
Yes.
that appreciation vibration comes from.
And is there certain things that you do that help you?
Yeah, I still struggle from time to time, especially with drivers that cut you off. And I'm just like, you know what? And one of the things I asked early on, you really want to develop your soul, you don't ask God for money. You ask God, show me my hypocrisies. When you do that, things change. So I will realize, I've talked about it on the show, Augmented Teachings, a couple times, where I will find myself in a situation to where I'll get mad at a driver, but then a day later, I find myself doing the same thing, but not because it was out of ill intent. It was because I didn't see them. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? They were behind the post the side door there and I didn't see them and I cut
Yeah.
them off. I'm like, oh my God, that may have happened to me, but I was passing judgment to them. But then I
Right.
realized the next day it could have just been an accident. It was no ill intent.
Right. Now, how does your podcast build on challenge or expand on the ideas of the book? Can you give us like a sneak peek of one of
Yes.
your episodes and so forth?
So yeah, so basically the book is just basic understanding. There's no application to it. The
Hmm.
show is the application of the information in the book.
I got you.
So yesterday we did a show. It was called "Are We Doing Our Job?" And we talk about exactly what I talked about right now. Where are we bringing back wonderful experiences? And we showed how our group we have third Thursdays. On third Thursday we go to each one of our friends' houses. Every month we rotate, and we just have unique experiences. So this last week we had sound bowls in the pool. We were playing the sound bowls in the pool, and you could feel the vibrations go through the water. It was so amazing, right? And we
Yeah.
have unique, and we get to take that back home and relive as many times as we want. And
Right.
so basically, the show is the application of how we can fix the things that aren't going to serve us on the other side of the veil.
Right. I love that. Now, religion can carry fear-based doctrines. Like, what practical exercise can listeners try this week to replace their fear with curiosity about the divine?
And I always tell people that not all the writers of the Bible
Hmm.
had had good intent. They always put their spin on it. So and they say, well, it was written by the it's the word of God. And I said, yes, it is. Everything we write, all intent, all not all intent, but all inspiration comes from source itself.
Yes.
So all inspiration comes from source. So yes, God did inspire the Bible to be written, but it's through the filter of the writer. Not all of them were clear channels of source.
Yes.
Um, Fear doesn't exist on the other side of the veil. That's why we come here at all. There's no
Yeah.
fear of not going back to heaven either.
Right.
Imagine if you're in an amusement park and and 50% of the people never made it home. They died at the amusement park. Would you go? No. But of course, according to Christian understandings, if you're not Christian, you don't go back to heaven. We would never take that chance not to be back in heaven, even if there was a 1% chance we wouldn't return. We always
Right.
go home. Doesn't God doesn't reject our experiences because we follow this religion or that religion. We're here to learn love. All scriptures have scriptures of love and have scriptures of fear. Older souls will always gravitate towards the love. Younger souls will always gravitate towards the fear because it helps them in their ego and their judgment mentality and self-righteousness. Older
Hmm.
souls will always choose the love and compassion. All religions have it. All
Yeah.
religions have scriptures. If you follow those and follow those to apply them towards humanity, then you are walking the walk of love, and you'll be pleasantly surprised with your choice to do so.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. Now you write that the awakening to our shared divinity naturally leads us to social progress. Can you share a real world example where this shift is already happening?
Well, if you look at our society, um, our our society keeps getting older and older. It's still
Mhm.
pretty primitive, but it's getting older and older. We don't have we don't have things like gladiator fights anymore. We're amused by people killing each other. Now we're like, oh wait, that's not good for us. We don't like that anymore. Or
Yeah.
because we have more what do you call it? We have more respect for life now.
Yeah.
We don't have slavery here anymore because we have more respect for life. We're realizing that we're all creations of God. All of our souls are direct manifestations of God to
Yeah.
experience and to learn and to bring back what it can.
Yeah.
And all of our souls are unique diamonds eventually with many, many facets of all those lifetimes. So
Mhm.
no two souls will have the same shaped or faceted diamond when we return our soul back to source eventually.
Yeah. I love that. Now, which scientific field or emergent study do you think is the closest to validating what you have explained earlier, which was, basically, I would say like, metaphysical claims that you explore and so forth like that.
Um, it's kind of crazy because it's hard for a machine to do it. There are machines that can see auras,
Hmm.
but they're very snapshot. They're just like a photo. You can't actually pan. They don't have cameras that actually moving cameras. They have photos that will do that for you. You can see the aura. There's certain, but it's hard to see as our species develops, as our DNA develops.
Hmm.
More of our soul will be able to enter these vessels. What makes our soul so special is they're scalable. We can put whatever our vessel can handle into
Yeah.
it. So
Hmm.
angels are always 100%. They aren't scalable. That's why you have angels coming here and going into human bodies. The
Yes.
bodies can't handle it. Our souls were specially made for this 3D reality so that we can scale to whatever the DNA can handle. As our
Yeah.
DNA enhances generationally over and over and over and over, then we are able to bring more of our abilities from the other side of the veil to this side of the veil. So
Hmm.
being able to know each other's thoughts without speaking. So their crime goes away really quick when that happens.
Right.
Being able to travel at the speed of thought so you can check on loved ones whenever you want just
Hmm.
by closing down, closing your eyes, meditating, and being able to feel the frequency and the vibration of the person you're seeking out. So our souls are not bound by vessels on the other
Yeah.
side of the veil, and they can do amazing things.
Yeah.
Here, these vessels are very primitive still, but as our DNA advances, then our abilities to bring those attributes from that side of the veil to this side of the veil will increase, and things will start to move a lot faster.
Now, how do you feel about spiritualists that have had contact, that have a spiritual connection and they're able to see the auras and they're able to see certain things that a lot of people can't because they do say that we all carry the sixth sense. We all carry the ability to be able to, contact and see things and be able to maybe make connections with people that have passed and so forth. What are your views on that?
It's real easy. This vessel adds layers of resistance towards our divine attributes. And some people have been able to work through these layers and been able to bring some of their divine abilities to this side of the veil. So yes, it does happen. What I was talking about before was it'll when our DNA advances, we don't have to work so hard. There's less layers of resistance. But
Yes.
some people have found ways to get through it. Buddhist monks, people in the spiritual community. One of the people on our show, she can feel vibrations and energy before you even speak because she's done the work. It's funny because we both started at the same time. I was starting my nuts and bolts approach to how spirituality works, and she was doing the work of deep meditation and working from the spiritual point, and I was working from the nuts and bolts point. But now she's on the show. Her name's Brandy, and we have the same conclusions, but from two different directions. And
Yeah.
that's what makes it great. But she has done that herself. She can feel vibrations and have understandings and be like, and then she'll question it and be like, and then a week later, she's like, oh, I was 100% correct. I should have listened.
Her intuition.
Yes.
I love it. Now, if you can assign listeners one tiny but mighty action over the next 24 hours to deepen their own knowing, what would it be and why would it be?
Well, I'll tell you, you know what? Um, we all have guardian angels. We all have them. We assign them, we ask them to watch over us before we're born, before we enter our vessel.
Hmm.
You can ask to help for them to help you anytime you want.
Yes.
And sometimes we find ourselves in bad situations and it's not being done to you, it's being done for you at your behest because you chose this chapter until you learned a certain thing.
Right.
Ask my guardian angels, ask your guardian angels, what do I need to learn in this experience so I can get out of this experience? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? What
Yeah.
do I have to do? Do I have to learn empathy, compassion, understanding, humility? What is it that I have to learn? Show me. Show me the error of my way so I can get past this chapter and get to a chapter with greener pastures.
Right.
And the second thing is always it's always the golden rule: treat others the way you should be treated. Because when you go through your past life review, which is something I wanted to hit on a little bit, when you go through
Mhm.
your past life review, it's not just the telling of your past life.
Right.
God is in every single one of us, recording we record through our five senses, but
Hmm.
God is recording emotionally.
Right.
So when you go through and you tell a joke to somebody, you're reliving that moment, you can feel the love and laughter rise that vibration. And
Yeah.
it's overwhelmingly fun, right? We love those experiences. So sometimes comedians have really great past life reviews because they're bringing a whole room up to laughter, and they get to feel that on the other side of the veil from
Right.
all points of view. But if you're not a good person and you demean people or bully people, you get to feel what that feels like. Even if you're not seen, even if you do it online, God connects the person that's reading that.
Yeah.
So don't do that. It's going to ruin you. When you go
Yeah.
back home and you put some hateful message on there and 1,000 people read it and get hurt, right? You're
Hmm.
like, oh my God, I caused that much destruction while I was there, and hate and sorrow. But you're like, oh, but here your ego can validate it. Your ego can say, well, wait a second, but 1,000 people liked what I said. Yes,
Yeah.
but it was mutual. It was mutual hatred. Mutual hatred is not love, and
Right.
that's the whole point. And that, the old saying, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. We should bring that one
Yeah.
back.
I love that. I love that. Now, what are some of the things that we haven't mentioned yet that you might want to get across to the listeners that we haven't touched on?
Well, I'm gonna go through real quick. Oh, you know, one of the things is everybody like in this country, it's really difficult because everybody prays to Jesus. Jesus is awesome. Jesus was a very old soul that taught love. God
Hmm.
is love. Jesus taught love.
Yes.
On the other side of the veil, you have to go through your past life review. It's basically your day in court, right? You
Mhm.
have to see how well you did or how bad you did.
Right.
Praying to Jesus doesn't take that away.
Hmm.
You don't get to bypass the past life review and go around like he's holding the velvet rope at the club. And you have to go around because you pray to Jesus. It doesn't work that way. You
Right.
still have to go through your past life review. There's no way around it. And you
Hmm.
still have to deal with the ramifications of your actions. Were they full of love? Were they full of fear and judgment?
Hmm.
And when you look at it that way, it brings people back to step back and say, "Huh, yeah, I understand." Because what you learn, you earn. And
Yeah.
we'll say hypothetically, Jesus could take I can't take your mistakes away. You can't take my mistakes away. We'll say
Yeah.
hypothetically, Jesus could. We'll just say we could. He could. All right. He's going to take them all away. Then you would stay a first grader forever. If you
Yeah.
don't have the ramifications of your actions to play out the way they're supposed to, you'll never grow as a soul,
Yes.
ever.
Hmm.
And we have to have those mistakes. You can't learn not to kill if you've never killed. You have to have these experiences and learn not to do them so it stays. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So it's not within you anymore. And we go
Right.
through cycles. So karma always plays out. I always tell people, I said, when you're judgmental towards a certain ethnicity, that's where your soul is going to go. So we can
Yeah.
learn not to be that way. We learn through firsthand knowledge of the experience. So if you're going to be judgmental toward this group of people, that's where you're going next. Your soul will ask to go there. You're like, no, I'm going to stay white forever. It's like, no, because what will happen is you'll get more prejudice and more prejudice and more out of alignment of God. Eventually your soul's going to have to make the change to the other side, to wherever you were passing judgment, so that you can learn to overcome that. That's why you see some white people that are very prejudiced towards different colored people, and some white people are not. The white people that aren't have been there. the ones that are showing prejudice towards brown people will say they haven't been there yet.
Hmm. Right. It's pretty amazing. Like, well, you did about 10 years of research when you were
Yes.
doing your book. You studied all different religions and you studied a lot of, how did you come to the conclusions in your book? Can you just, before we go, explain how you put everything together and how it's helped others?
Yeah. It's funny because when I explained the LGBTQ process to friends who were from the LGBTQ community,
Mhm.
they would say, "You just changed my life." All that fear and damnation that I felt from my family is gone now. And it's funny because a lot of the things that I say, almost everything I say in this book, is in the Bible. They
Hmm.
just you weren't led there, you know. I told my friend, I told my friend, faith without good works is dead. Is in the Bible. He goes, no, it's not. It's faith alone. I'm like, okay, James 2:20. Let's check it out. And he's like, oh, it is in there, like, exactly. And that does play out. You can pray to Jesus 17 times a day, but that doesn't develop the soul. We're not here to learn to worship Jesus. We're here to emulate Jesus. And when you go back home, you realize I could have stayed here and worshiped him directly. That soul, I could, literally worship that soul directly. I didn't come here to worship. I came here to emulate. Jesus already showed us how to do it. It's our turn to do it, and that's the
Yes.
problem.
That's a pretty it's pretty very deep, your book and your concepts, and you're very spot on with a lot of the stuff you were saying is so true. All the spiritualists I spoke with and worked with have said very similar things like you. And it's the different interpretations. Everybody has their own interpretation of the Bible, and the Bible was written, I believe, 4,000 years after Jesus stepped on the earth. And so a lot of the interpretations are, like you said, their interpretations from the person who wrote the scriptures. So,
Right. And one of the things I want to talk about again, just to reiterate, the Bible doesn't give the why. When this
mhm,
book gives a why to it, and when you do that, like, okay, now I have something to grab onto. I know when my fiance Brandy, she was going through learning, stuff when she was growing up, and she would ask questions, and she'd be like, you just have to accept that. You just have to accept what the preacher's saying, and that's it. You have to have faith. That's why it's moving from faith into knowing and understanding. Because when you have the why, then it's harder for people to be shaken from it.
yeah, very true. That's so true. Now, if you had to take today's conversation and you wanted to emphasize on some important factors, what are some things you'd like to emphasize on?
God loves every single one of us equally, equally. But when we return back home, we disperse ourselves vibrationally.
Hmm.
So you'll have people that are of lower vibration hanging out with people of lower vibration.
Right.
You have people of higher or souls, I say people, souls of higher vibration hanging out with other souls of higher vibration.
Yeah.
And the thing is the more you emulate love and compassion that Jesus showed you, the
Hmm.
higher likelihood you'll be hanging out with the soul of Jesus, because vibrationally it won't be the same. And I
Right.
real and I notice a common thread: the people that were very religious and have fear and judgment and hate and whatever as their mantra for their religion had a harder time when they had their past life review, when they were headed to heaven, because their vibration wasn't in alignment. So it's
Hmm.
like, imagine pool water. So you have a cold pool. If you're already in the pool, if you're already vibrating at that high frequency of love and compassion, heaven's easy.
Yeah.
When you aren't vibrating at that level, it's much more difficult. I've even heard of some, uh, actually, a lot of testimonials have said that they've asked their guardian angel to stop because the vibration was so high, the love was so intense, and they weren't used to it. So it was much more difficult for them to ascend into
Yeah.
heaven till they acclimatized towards it. So love is the answer. it's never been religion. Religion is more of a control construct.
Hmm.
And when you get back home, you are loved. We all go back home. God
Yes.
doesn't punish us for going left when we should have went right, or going right when we should have gone left. God does not punish us for that. We're here to work it out ourselves. God,
Hmm.
with infinite amounts of love comes infinite amounts of patience, and God is very patient with us.
Yes.
And when you watch your past life review, I want people to remember, when you watch your past life review, your ego is not there to defend you. So
Hmm.
if somebody slaps you in the face and you slap them back, your ego says, I'm validated because they hit me first. On the other side of
Right.
the veil, no, you were a soul that had a choice of turning the other cheek and show love and compassion. Because when you hit that person back, it's also recording. So you get
Yes.
to feel what that slap feels like. You get to
Hmm.
feel that person take that hit just as you did. When you turn the other
Right.
cheek, the penalty's on them
Yeah.
only. If you don't turn the other
Right.
cheek, the penalty's on both. Two wrongs
Yeah.
don't make a right. And at the end of the past life review, you have a full understanding of your mistakes and your successes.
Hmm.
You are shown potentials of, if you return, you can fix some of these things.
Right.
And God does not judge you. Pure love cannot judge. Judgment is a human construct. So we decide. God will always ask you, are you ready to come home? God always wants us to come home. We say no. You deserve better. I'm going to go back and do it again. But I'm going to do it
Hmm.
from this point of view so that I can learn to fix this problem and this problem. And the next time I'm going to do this point of view so I can fix this problem and that problem. So, so the slave isn't always the slave. The slave owner isn't always the slave owner. The rich aren't always the rich, and the poor aren't always the poor. We move around until we learn unconditional love for all.
I love that. I love that. Now, where can people find your book?
Balboa Press has it. God is greater than sign. God is greater than religion. Barnes and Noble also has it, but you have to put the whole title in to find it. So it's God greater than sign religion, moving from faith into knowing and understanding. You can also reach us at augmented teachings at gmail.com. And we have augmented teachings on YouTube also.
I love it. I love it. And
Thank you.
is there any other thing that you'd like to say before we go
No,
that we have?
I want to say thank you for having me on your show. And I'm really appreciative. And um, it's a big highlight for me in my life. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and doing all that research. I think it's very important that people have, different points of view and on, because we have in our society today, it's so hard to even talk about religion because people have such opinionate,
Right.
views on religion. And, you had the courage to come out and do this research and to share it, publicly, and maybe wake up some souls and wake up, and maybe let some light bulbs go on for some people and see things from a different aspect and a different point of view and understand that the whys and not so much, what they've been taught from, from their families and from, each generation,
Right.
how they interpreted things.
And one of the things I realized real quick is once you're on the other side of the veil, you're no longer a religion. You're no
Yeah.
longer a religion. Christianity does not exist on this side of the veil. It's only love. That's it.
Right.
So when you're in alignment with love, you're in alignment with heaven. If you're in alignment with
Exactly.
religion, you can, because you can learn love from it. But if you put religion above humanity, then you're not in alignment with heaven anymore.
I love that. I love that. Oh, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I appreciate you and I appreciate your work. And I can't wait to read your book. And I'm very happy that you took the time out to write it. And congratulations on that huge accomplishment.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you also. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too. Thank you.